Hey, Christopher here. And in this session, I want to follow up on what I talked about in the last session, which was ultimately developing a ministry plan. Now, the first step for that is really just mapping everything out. What is it you're doing now currently? Obviously, you need to develop a vision, you need to iteratively improve that vision and start to make some changes that get you and your people to where you want them to be and ultimately where you want to be. I always have a saying, if you're stressed out all the time, you're doing it wrong. There's a difference between hard work. I think of it like when I go kayaking. When I go kayaking, I'll be on the water for 3, 4 hours and I feel spent and I'm tired. I've put in a lot of hard work rowing around a pond or a river or bayou, but I don't feel stressed. I feel like I've expended energy. I've put in the hard work, but I don't feel like it's taken away from me. And many times, the way that we run our ministry, we feel like it is draining us of our life force, and then ultimately we may justify it by saying, that's just the way it is. I'm here to say that while it may be a reality for some, it does not necessarily need to be a reality for you. So, I mentioned in my introduction that I have a project management certificate. I want to talk to you about Six Sigma. There's a specific aspect of Six Sigma that will help you and anybody in ministry or any other project-based work start to figure out how you can improve and really make positive changes to your ministry. The first thing you want to do is define. You want to be clear on what it is that you are doing and why you're doing it and when you're doing it. These are all so important. Defining what you're doing and ultimately your goals for what you're doing is just a catalyst for growth, because once you now say out loud or write out loud, here's what I want to do, then you can actually get to work doing it. But as you begin to do it, you need to analyze it. It's important to take your ministry and then look through it and say, what are the good things? Roses, buds, and thorns. What's blooming? What needs some growth? And what are some things we just need to get out of here because they're really not helping us in any way, shape, or form? Now, in order to analyze, you have to measure. So you have to start setting some goals and have to start saying, these are the things that we want to accomplish, and these are when I want to accomplish them. We see this with Israel. Every time God moved or did something significant, they would put a monument of stones. When you see them cross multiple rivers, they make a monument to what the Lord had done. And that's because they wanted to remember and to ultimately to measure their journey, because when they're in the wilderness or they're fighting battles or whatever it is, we record all these things and then say, here's what we learned from it. Here's the lessons that we've learned from it. And when you start to measure things and then analyze what you've measured, these are where valuable lessons are learned. And ultimately you can figure out what changes need to happen and what changes maybe don't need to happen. You begin to see your ministry holistically and not just emotionally. Once you've measured and analyzed, that's where improvements come in. This is where you make your changes. And to me, a ministry is like a large ship. You may be the rudder turning it, but it takes time to change the course. Move too fast and you'll tip over the boat and sink it. And so whenever you're making these improvements or making these changes, you want to do them at a cadence and a pace that is reflective of the culture of your church. Now, some environments are fast moving. They're used to that. And some need to make changes slowly. We have to think big picture. We're not in it for the next 5 years of ministry. We're in it for the next 50. We want to ensure the next generation is going to be handed this ministry and continue to do it until the Lord comes or God calls them away. Now, the last thing is this: control. You want to have things in place that hold you accountable and others accountable, whether it be deadlines, software with to-do tasks. There's a number of ways to guarantee consistency. But in every one of these scenarios, you want to make sure that things are going to go a certain way all the time, every time. That's how you're able to continue to define, measure, analyze, improve, and ultimately control things in a ministry. Now, I say control here. It's the Lord's will. We're doing God's work. But this principle here will help you as the steward of that ministry to make some smart and savvy changes, and then people will be able to go back and understand your logic and your thought and ultimately all the data that you're pulling from your ministry, so that way you can lead it to the future. I'll share a story in the next session about how I applied this to my context and the substantial changes positively that happened. See you in the next video.